Well, thanks for this. Okay, so the idea of this, as Rachel said, is just to informally introduce people. This is an odd time, these summer weeks, and we thought this is a better idea to, just see where that goes, see how other people's lives affected those people around them. So, Donna and Mark, this is your life. No, it's not.
Is it Piers Morgan's life stories?
So let's just kick off by asking you a bit about yourself. Just introduce yourselves, who you are, where you live, what you do, that type of thing.
Yeah. My name's Mark Shaw. What was the question again?
Well, you're nearly there. Who you are, where you live.
Oh yeah, we live in Rotherham. I'm originally from Sheffield at Freshville. We live in Rotherham. My job is a project manager for a control systems company. My background is nearly 30 years as a control systems engineer, but the last 10 years I've been doing project management.
Yeah, he's the clever one. One of us had to be. So I'm Donna Shaw. We've been married for 22 years next week. So, yeah. I'm a Rotherham lass, through and through, and I'm proud of it. A lot to be said for Rotherham, I'm proud of it. I'm a teaching assistant. I work with children from the ages of 3 up to 7, and I absolutely wouldn't want to do anything else. I retrained to do that 14 years ago, and I love my job. I'm passionate about the children that come through our doors.
Brilliant. And have you got a family?
Oh, yeah. So, need to mention him. We've got our gorgeous son who is currently taking photos today. So he's pottering about. Tom, he's 21 and we're very proud. He's just finished university with a degree in photography, ironically enough.
Woo-hoo!
And on our sound desk, doing the visuals this morning, is our gorgeous daughter Hannah, who turned 18 2 weeks ago. And we're also extremely proud of her because she found out 2 weeks ago that she's aced her A-levels. Clearly gets the brains from one of us. So, we also have a very, very mischievous 3-legged cat, but enough said.
Everyone needs a 3-legged cat, don't they? Really? Okay, thanks. So, we're just going to ask you briefly, how you became Christians. Well, actually, before we do that, how did you meet?
Okay, do you want this one or me? Okay. So I was a receptionist for a company many years ago, and I'd worked there for a number of years, when someone walked through the doors who had decided to retrain to do what he now does, and he was coming on placement. So he came through the doors, there was you and another young man, and he was really loud and brash, and you was not, to say the least. And so... it kind of went, well, we were just really good friends for years, weren't we? We were the best of friends, actually. And that genuinely was all there was to it. For about 4 years, and then suddenly, you'd already asked me out, and I'd said, no. But then my eyes were opened, and I realised that actually he were an all right guy. So, and that was, and then 18 months later, then we got married in 28th of August, 99. So,
Very good. And then each of you, how did you become Christians?
Well, for me, I weren't brought up in a Christian environment. But when I was growing up, we used to have near where we lived, there were a youth centre, community centre. And we used to have a bus turn up called Rainbow Bus, which I found out were for a Christian, it was like an outreach. But I never went to it because I was always too nervous. But occasionally, if I went to a church service, I enjoyed it. And and then when I met Donna, I started reading Bible because I could see something in her, and the sisters really, seemed lively, and so I started reading the Bible, emailing with scriptures and stuff to get, find out about them, and then it was a church service in Rotherham about 22 years ago now, I think it were. I gave my life to Jesus.
Mine's the complete opposite. My parents got saved when I was a toddler, so I actually cannot remember a time when I didn't go to church and I didn't hear the gospel. It was during those days where you went to church 3 times on a Sunday and twice in the week, and as you got older, the youth service on a Friday. So I grew up knowing that Jesus loved me. And so I never doubted it. I never questioned in my mind because I grew up So from the age of 9, I used to go forward every Sunday night because they gave free leaflets, and who wants a free leaflet? But it wasn't until I was 14, and I always remember I was at a church in Rotherham and went to an evening service, and it was a Scottish evangelist called Danny McVickers. He's long since died, but he was a proper hellfire preacher. I tell you what, I'd been brought up knowing Jesus loved me, but oh boy, I wasn't going to doubt it anymore. I was terrified into the kingdom. But no, seriously though, that was the night that I realised my parents weren't going to get me into heaven. They weren't going to do it. I couldn't ride on their coattails. I needed to make a decision for myself. And so that was when I was 14, and I haven't looked back since.
It's really interesting because I've got a similar background to you, and I also remember Danny McVickers.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I was looking at my dad then, smiling.
Yeah.
So the benefit of hindsight, when you get maybe over a certain age, the benefit of hindsight is a wonderful thing. So I've got a question for you, but it's got 2 parts.
Okay.
So if you were walking down the street and bumped into your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give? I'll ask that question first and then I'll ask you the follow-on. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Okay. So for me, it's actually a no-brainer because, like you said, I'm over a certain age and heading up to another big number soon. So there's been many times when I've looked back and thought, actually, if I could have my time back, this is what I'd do. If I went back to my 20-year-old self, I would tell her, stop. See, back then, all I wanted to do was find the right person, get married and have children. And there's nothing wrong with that unless that is your be-all and end-all. And because of that, I did go from one doomed relationship straight into the next. And it wasn't until I got a few years older, I think it was about 24, when I suddenly thought, no, I need to stop this and I need to surrender to God. God's got it in hand. He's got it all in hand. He knows the right person that's out there for me. Little did I know I was actually working with the guy, but he knows exactly who's there for me. And so I need to stop and surrender. And even if that means a life of being single, that's what I've got to do. So that is what I'd said to my 20-year-old self. Stop, slow down, and trust God.
And what about you, Mark?
I would say, don't get married. No.
So Donna's saying how lovely he is, and
Only kidding. No, I'm genuinely, I'm not sure because I've had a great life and everything. Probably just when I was younger, be more outward going and go for things like rather than being quiet and keeping in the shadows. So yeah, no, I've had a good life. So now I can't think of a particular.
yeah, that's the statement everybody will remember you by, Mark. So the second part to my question is that when you're bringing a family up in church and when you've got little ones, sometimes it can be really difficult. What if you could tell your younger self or give any advice of how you've brought your children up in church environments and to them making a decision for themselves, what would you say?
You didn't give me that on list of questions. No, thanks for that, Rach. I think just trust God with every step of the way. You think when you've got the baby and it's sleepless nights, you think that's the hard days. You think when the toddlers and they're going through the terrible 2s and 3s, Hannah, that they're the hard days. Teenage years, they're pretty hard. I've gone through it with one, and I'm still going through it with the other. They can be hard days. And I think what I would say is trust God every step of the way. Don't rush the lives. Don't rush to get through those stages, as hard as they might be, but trust God and hand them over to God. There is something I believe, you bring your children up in the way of God, and there is that verse that says, and when they're old, they won't depart. I can testify to that. We brought our kids up in God's ways, and we prayed over them, and I'll be honest, I've cried over them. There have been times my heart has been broken over them both. But I've trusted God. And at the end of the day, God loves them more than I ever could. And I can't get my head around that because I don't think there's any stronger love than a maternal love, if I'm honest, earthly. But God loves them more than me. So if I'm passionate about my kids and the future and the salvation, how much more God? He loves them and knows them. So for what I would say to my 20-year-old self and to anyone here that's just going down that road, keep trusting God with them every step and love them. Make sure they know that as well. Make sure, even in the hard times, that you love them unconditionally. Hopefully both our two children know they can come to us with absolutely anything and know that they are loved unconditionally. Anything?
Do you want to add into that, Mark?
I don't think too much to add to that. No, I mean just yeah, we let them do, like, you know, you have boundaries, but it's been growing up, you know, choose what we want to do, not be like too restrictive with school and stuff, not put pressure on. So yeah, and just can't think what else to say actually.
That's fine, mate. That's fine. We did drop that one on you. So, Mark, to you. I'll start with you. There's a lot of churches out there, all right? And I can't remember when you started coming to Grace Church, but it's a while ago now. So, you know, why Grace Church?
Well, a few years ago we were looking for a church as a family because the one where I was at, there wasn't that much youth around for both of them. And we wanted a lively, vibrant church. So we came here once, had a look, enjoyed the worship and people, and that was it, yeah. Tom, they immediately took to it. So,
You got anything to add to that, Donna?
Not really. I think the same. We were looking for a vibrant church that was also faith-filled. We wanted a church, emphasis on worship and word, and somewhere where we could all serve. We all wanted to be able to serve. You know, we wanted a place for our children to be able to grow physically and spiritually. So, yeah.
Life can be filled with ups and downs and difficult situations that we all go through. Can you think of a situation that you're happy to share where it's been difficult, but you feel that God has been with you every step of the way?
Yeah, I can. Bear with me on this. The tissues are here because it is quite emotive. And I'm really privileged, actually, because today I've got my dad's younger sister here, so she knows where I'm going with this. But about 10 years ago, my dad started to get ill. At that time, we didn't know what it was. I wasn't aware that at that age you could get this illness. He was in his late 50s, and he began to show symptoms, and then eventually, as time went on, we had him diagnosed with young onset Alzheimer's. I'd never heard of it. I thought it was something that only older people got. And it was a very difficult time in my life, and I'll be really honest, I struggled. I struggled with the diagnosis. I struggled to accept that my godly father had got this cruel disease. And it was a really difficult time. I struggled with it because in my mind, in my human opinion, my dad had so much more to offer. He was a lay preacher. He was a Bible teacher. And in my eyes, he got so many more years to be able to offer to God. So I couldn't understand why he would have this horrible and such a cruel disease. And so I struggled with all the stuff that you go through with grief. They tell you go through different things, and I did. And I went through anger and the whys and the wherefores. And it wasn't until God began to speak to me during that period, and he began to challenge me. And you'll have heard me probably say it, the phrase that comes to mind is, come what may. Come what may. And it was in that season I had to choose to trust God in the come what may. And at this point, I didn't know what that come what may were. I was still praying for that miracle. I was still praying for my dad to be healed. But I had to keep saying, I'm going to trust you in the come what may. And going on 3.5 years ago, sadly for us, my dad died. And it's in that time then that you really are put to it. And God challenged me, are you still going to trust me in the come what may? Even though I'd still got to work through all my grief and the why, he's too young, he had so much. But God challenged me to keep trusting in the come what may. And I think if anything, it's made my faith so much stronger because it's had to. because I haven't got my dad anymore. I haven't got him there anymore. He is now doing what he always wanted to do, and that is worshipping Jesus. My dad, even during the Alzheimer's, the one lovely thing, he forgot everything. He forgot everyone. He'd forget your name. He'd forget who you were. But if I said to him, you love Jesus, the tears would stream down his face. He'd go, yes, yes. He just wanted to worship Jesus. So he is now doing what he always wanted to do, and that is face to face with the Saviour, worshipping. And I've chosen to trust God in the come what may.
Yeah, for me, a real tough time was a few years ago when my eldest brother, he went into hospital for an operation, and he had a few complications. He ended up in intensive care, and then we were called to the hospital one day, and basically due to some medical problem, negligence, they injected they had to get him in intensive care. They had to inject him with something into his neck, but it went the wrong way. They put it in the wrong vein, and it basically gave him a massive brain hemorrhage, and he was brain dead. So when we didn't know that till we got to the hospital. And it was, when's best to switch the life support off. So went through all that. It was really difficult. My mum couldn't. She went out of the room, and my brother couldn't face it. So I was sat there with him for a while, prayed, and then gave him, the okay to switch it off. But afterwards, for a long time, I had different, like anger, different thoughts why it had happened. But I just, obviously got family to support me and trusted in God, and just, I suppose in the end, I just thought, well, maybe there's a reason for it, but obviously we don't know why. But yeah.
Yeah. We don't opt out of life, do we, just to become Christians. That's a reality of what we're all facing sometimes. So, okay, Donna, this is one for you, I think. Okay, what about an ambition or a dream, godly or otherwise, that you feel you want to share with us, if you're able to?
Yeah, I think my godly dream that I probably still have is there's stuff that I've gone through in my life that isn't the right place to share on here. I went through a very dark time in my younger years. It was a very hard time for me, and I won't go into it on camera because it's not the right place. But I think because I've gone through different experiences, whether it's because of my dad or because of stuff that I've gone through, I feel that at some stage I would like to be able to use that to help particularly other young women that may go through similar situations to what I've already been through. So yeah, I think for me, my ambition would be to be able to help other girls, other young women, perhaps who are maybe going through similar situations to what I've been through.
Oh, I think I might need to talk to you about that after.
You're not younger than Donna.
No, I don't mean
You're
from
not
that.
that much older.
That's nasty.
Yeah,
Tell
it's
you
very,
what.
it's painful.
It's just maybe you and me should have been
Yeah,
up here.
they're not nice to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to a new Christian?
Trust God. It's as simple as that, because no matter what you might go into Christianity thinking, life isn't always easy. Life, it's us all. My sister once said, we're not given a free pass just because we're Christians. We're not given a free pass. In other words, it's not going to be all roses and nice smelling in the garden. There's going to be rough times. And so my simple thing would be to say, hang in there. When it's hard, and sometimes that's all you've got, then hang. Just hang. But trust God through it all, because you do come through it. You come through every situation, no matter how dark it is. So yeah, trust God.
Yeah, I think similar to trusting God. I think if you're a young Christian, get friends around, other Christians to support you. Read your Bible, and sometimes when you read it, it don't always make sense to me. So ask people about it who's got years of experience. So yeah, but get support from others, I think, would be really good.
I think that's a really good point, actually, Mark, that over the years, we've really, really benefited from having other Christians around us, whether that is life group leaders or whether that is our peers or even whether that's younger people that have encouraged us and supported us. You know, sometimes all somebody needs is you putting your arm around them and telling them that you love them or it's okay. So it's really important to have some encouragement. Thank you.
And last but by no means least, all right, you've done really well. Bucket list. Okay, so you've got 50 years left to live, obviously. But what do you want to do? What's those things that you want to fit in before? Well, not before anything. I'm not going to finish that sentence.
I think for me,
What do you want to do? What's on that list?
the big one for me and as a family is always for years to go to Australia for a few weeks, go around Australia. And it's massive. Obviously, can't go around all of it, but yeah, I think that's what I'd like to do. I haven't really got anything else. Obviously.
That's a big one, though.
Yeah, but yeah, we really.
What do you want to do when you get there, though?
I don't know, just go different. Yeah. Yeah, we could go on the Gold Coast, I suppose.
What you, Donna?
Probably the same as Mark. I've been really, really blessed. As horrible as he has been to me on camera this morning, and he has. No, he has actually fulfilled 3 of my bucket list items already. So I got 3 definite items. The first was to ride in a helicopter. So I got that when I was 25, my 25th birthday, something like that. Then hot air balloons. So I've had that privilege of going in a hot air balloon. That is an amazing experience. The silence up there, once you're up there, is incredible. And the final one, I always wanted. Now, it was slightly adjusted, and you'll understand why. My final thing on my bucket list, if we could ever, and we will when we're in heaven, is to stroke a big cat. Now, I'm not going to risk that down here because I'm not that daft. But we adjusted it slightly, and one of my bucket list items, you arranged for me to go and feed a big cat instead. So I managed to go and feed 2 she cats, 2 tigers, and it was the most incredible experience. It was absolutely such an adrenaline rush, being literally was just so close to him. If I'd have put my hand through, I wouldn't have brought it back, put it that way. So, yeah.
That wasn't the final question, but this is.
Okay.
So, following the theme from last week, if you watched Dave and Hilda last week, and Janine pulled this out as well in some of the things that she said, they talked about missions quite a bit. So, my final question to you, Donna, is you have been involved in missions, and you as a family are, and your sister's involved in missions. Do you want to just share a little bit of that story?
Yeah, so my sister, Becky, some of you ladies will have seen her when she spoke to our ladies group some months ago. My sister Becky, she runs, she's the founder and director, and runs a charity called One by One. And her heart was in that from being 18, and it took many years to unfold. But she's got a children's home, King's Children's Home, out in Kenya. And she's also got another one in Pakistan. And they're doing work in other areas, some of which does have to be kept quite quiet for political reasons. But when she came to open the children's home, she asked me if I'd like to go. I'd never been on missions before at that stage. This was back in 2012. And so she said, would I go and help to open up the home and get it ready for the children? And so that was my first visit. And I honestly, it sounds really, really bad, this, but you go out there and you go into a third world nation, so you think, I'm going to be the one that's going to be the blessing to them, and I'm going to be, I'm going to impart to them. And do you know what? No. They were the ones that were such a blessing to me, and I learned so much from them. We visited the area where the children's home is. It's very, very remote. We're surrounded by a village of mud huts. It's very, very poor. The people there live off the crops that they grow. So if they get droughts, they're affected. It is really, really dire. But you go and visit these people in the mud huts, and you know they've got nothing, but they will come out, and they will come with a basket full of bananas, and you're expected to eat the whole lot, mind. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a good banana or two, but a basket I'm struggling with. But, but they do expect you to eat it. But you're very aware while you're doing it. A, if you don't, you're insulting them. But B, you're very aware that actually you're probably taking their food, the food that they were going to give their children. So you come back so humbled, because actually they really know how to give. Out of the nothing they've got, they give, And so I went there the first time and just, different experiences there. I ended up sponsoring a little girl Valentine, and that's a time for another time, a story of how that came about with little Valentine. But it's just been the most amazing. I should have gone last year, but obviously some global pandemic hit us or something, so that's not happened. But I'm hoping in the next 5 or 10 years to be able to do that again.
Thank you. That's brilliant. So that's it. But before we give Mark and Donna a big round of applause, because they've been really open. When you meet some people, you get your gut feeling maybe tells you that you like or dislike them, or that they're solid or not solid. And like when I met Mark and Donna, my gut feeling said these are decent people. I didn't know them, but my gut feeling told me that. But then over the years, what's a more thorough and better way to, I wouldn't use the word judge, because that's what it is. To judge someone is when you see their fruits over years. Mark and Donna, they're really, really solid people. They beaver away in the background doing stuff that not always is obviously seen. And so I would like to commend them, because it isn't always noticed, but it is noticed every now and again. And, and as I said, my gut feeling said they're solid people, but they are. Get to know them, because they are really, really, really good people.